hang out with people who smell like lavender and fine herbs.
Yes.
In many leather-bound books. Hey guys, welcome to Full Send Living. We have been on a journey, everybody, and if you have not been along this journey, you're going to want to go back. But we've been reading through James, the book of James in the Bible. We've already read through the first 4 chapters. We're about to read chapter 5. So if you want to start at the beginning, go back 4 episodes to chapter 1 and join us.
Let's get it.
So here we are. We're going to read chapter 5. If you're brand new to Full Sun Living, subscribe. That's it. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Chapter 5. Wait, I'm going to read through.
Okay. While he's doing that, guys, I'm Nate Thompson. This is Ethan Berker.
Yep, thank you.
Full Sun Living.
Sure, Full Sun. Where's James at?
Take risks, trust God,
There we
something
go.
every single day.
Here we are. Ooh,
There he is.
Look how much highlighting I have in this book.
wowzers.
Okay, here we go.
So Ethan's going to end it out with the Passion Translation.
Passion translation will be much easier to read.
Passion.
Passion. Okay, verse 1. Listen, all you who are rich, for it's time to weep and howl over your misery.
Oh, you stinkers.
Listen, all you who are rich, for it's time to weep and howl over the misery that will overtake you. Your riches lie rotting, your fine clothing eaten by moths, and your gold and silver are corroded as a witness against you. Oh my gosh. You have hoarded up treasure for the last days, but it will become a fire to burn your flesh. Listen, can't you hear the cries of the laborers over the wages you fraudulently held back from those who worked for you? The cries for justice for those you have cheated have reached the ears of the Lord of armies. You have indulged yourselves with every luxury and pleasure this world offers, but you're only stuffing your heart full of a day of slaughter. My goodness. You have condemned and murdered good and innocent people who had no power to defend themselves.
Okay, let's pause there. So, you know what's so funny?
Coming on pretty heavy-handed there, Jimmy.
Jimbo. What's funny, I think, is it's so easy when like this loading one, like you're always looking at somebody else because you're like, well, I'm not rich.
Well, I'm not rich.
You're talking to me.
I've never murdered anyone. Nobody works for me.
And we're always looking up the food chain of like, well, this is the people like, they're making sweet cash and they're, whatever. And we never think it to be us. And what I get out of this chunk is when I read it, it's an idea to me that when you have something to help, when you have something, there's a responsibility I feel like that the Lord gives you where when you have the ability to help, you should, and it's like a requirement, I think, to just be generous and to be giving and caring and loving and,
Yeah, well, in the last verse of chapter 4, it said that if you see the opportunity to do the right thing and do not do it, it is sin. So he's following up on that
and then
statement.
hold on to that idea and then reread when he comes into like, your wealth is rotting away. Like your fine clothes are being eaten by moths, turning into rags. Think of your closet, how sometimes you're not even willing, we're not even willing to take clothes to the Goodwill. Like all of the stuff that we have as a people, it's like, it's just rotting away in your closets while there's people with nothing. And like to think of like, your very wealth, where is it at? Like your silver and gold, it's become worthless in the way of like, if I'm always just looking out for me, I'm always trying to get for me. And where there's people around me that need something. And he's just like, you need to look around. There's a responsibility, I feel like, to be generous that the Lord asks of us and requires of us. And I think sometimes it's so easy for us as a Christian or whatever to think of like he's talking to a certain select people. But we know it. And maybe we don't fully understand it because I don't fully understand how wealthy we are.
Well, I can guarantee one thing.
I've seen glimpses of a poor, like when I was in Haiti. I went down there a few times, and you're just like, you come back, and it just eventually wears away.
Yeah.
That reality. But what we have as wealth, we always want to point to somebody else who has more, so we get
Yeah.
off the hook.
And he's talking to people who guaranteed every single person listening to this is far more wealthy than the wealthiest person that he could be referring to right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no way that anybody he's talking to in this back then, when it comes to terms of riches, wealth, access to food, water, homes, vehicles, all of the things, every single thing that even the lowest class person in America has would have been a king at that point in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got a beat up Honda Civic. That thing can travel 60 miles per hour.
Yeah.
You have a king would have a camel that walks extremely slow and poops.
Yeah.
You know,
Someone's got to clean that up.
it's like I love that you even just pointed out that like it's easy to point up and be like, oh, that's not me. It's like, but he's referring to a certain class of people. And if you live in America, more than likely you are of that class.
Yeah. And I think for us as believers, as Christians, to not actively find ways to be a help, to not actively find ways to be a generous hand at times, and to also to know that it's not just my responsibility, it's ours, but as a people, as a group of believers, like if we're holding on to things in such a selfish way, we are this person. Mm-hmm. And that, like our wealth is just rotting. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I took stuff to the Goodwill. It's embarrassing almost how much stuff you have. Like we had a garage sale.
So many mismatched socks.
Here was a weird thing. We have a garage sale where we're selling things for like nickels. And then we're closing it. And these 3 old ladies walk up and they're like, legitimate. I'm putting stuff in the trailer. Like, we're done. Shop's closed. And they're looking for stuff. I just am like, you can have that. And the lady's like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm taking, like, all of this is about
It's
this
just
going to the
gather
Goodwill now.
dust
Like,
at
it's
this point. Yeah.
Like before you got here 1 minute ago, I was now just giving it away to the Goodwill. So it was like this reality of, it's so strange. Like 1 minute, I'm like, give me that nickel.
No, sir, I will take a dime.
Yeah.
I will not go.
I shall not.
I will not meet you in between. I will take the dime.
And then 10 minutes later, I'm closing shop and be like, yeah, I'm just giving this crap away now. Like, you can just have it.
I already made enough profit.
How wild, you know? And then to think of like when he's like, you're storing this stuff away for what? Like you're so greedy with it. Mm-hmm. And man, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh man, that's crazy. I feel like I could go down 1,000 different rabbit trails right now, but I'm going to spare our listeners.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
See,
yourself.
you can tell that I'm still debating. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should take them along. Nope. Here we go. We're gonna go. Okay.
I'm at verse 7.
Yeah.
For the,
wait, were you reading or
no, you were?
I was reading.
You got the passion, so
Yes.
it makes it a little bit
Perfect. Okay. Meanwhile, brothers and sisters, we must be patient and filled with expectation as we wait for the appearing of the Lord. Think about the farmer who patiently wait for the earth's harvest as it ripens because of the early and latter rains. So you also keep your hopes high and be patient, for the presence of the Lord is drawing closer. Since each of you are part of God's family, never complain or grumble about each other, so that judgment will not come on you. For the true judge is near and very ready to appear. My brothers and sisters, take the prophets as your mentors. They have prophesied in the name of the Lord, and it brought them great suffering, yet they patiently endured. We honor them as our heroes because they remained faithful even while enduring great suffering. And you have heard of all that Job went through and we can now see that the Lord ultimately treated him with wonderful kindness, revealing how tender-hearted he really is. Above all, we will be those who have never need to verify our speech as truthful, but by swearing by the heavens or the earth or any oath. But instead, we must be so full of integrity that our yes or no is convincing enough, and we do not stumble into hypocrisy. Whew.
Do you want
to? Yeah, a little highlight here. So he refers to us being like farmers who wait for the earth's harvest as it ripens because of the early and latter rains. And I think that's like where he's saying that there is riches, there is inheritance, but it's not here yet. Like, be patient, and even the prophets, he's like, they suffered and yet they patiently endured, because there is an inheritance waiting for us in heaven that we do not have access yet now, but we're, I think it's, man, where is it? Is it in James where he says, or maybe it's just Jesus, store up your treasures in heaven, and
Moth and rust cannot destroy.
yeah. And that's like the same thing right here. Or is that just the translation?
No, that was, I think Jesus said that back
Yeah.
then.
So I just think that, when we look at our life, like, there's that whole, like, well, what are people going to say about you in your funeral? That's significant, that is significant. The legacy that you leave, everything like that, it is significant. However, I think we have to be asking ourselves the question of, like, what do I want to find when I get to heaven? Like, do I want to get to heaven and get a crown? Like, obviously, like, I want Jesus. Jesus is my number one. But there's things where it's like, if I get to heaven and everybody else has a crown to throw down at Jesus's feet and I don't have a crown, dude, that sucks. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things, or even like they talk in Revelation, talks about different people have different robes and in mansions and stuff like that, and that's forever. This is a vapor in the wind. This is so temporary. Like, anybody who is over the age of 25 is starting to realize, or has realized, of how quickly this thing is going, and I think that we have to understand that there's a investment happening on earth where we choose to invest our hearts into either something that will ultimately one day be destroyed, or one thing that will be timeless and live on for eternity. So, dude, that's all I have to say about that passage.
The one other little thing that just sticks out to me like a sore thumb is just in 9, it just says, don't grumble about each other. I mean, it's not a huge statement, but I mean, he's talking about just this patience of waiting on the Lord, like waiting for the return, and like the endurance of it, and just to like this idea of like when you're in some weird sweaty line at Cedar Point, and you're just waiting and one step forward, but and just the grumbling and the complaining just amongst like in the waiting and the patience and like in those things, to just recognize we're in the same line, we're in this race for the return of the Lord, and then to be less grumbly towards each other, and what that can hinder as we look through these other chapters, what he talked about, just our words, what we say, like what we're in, what we're doing, and what we're believing, like our all of the stuff, the generosity, the lack of generosity, all the stuff that James has said throughout all these chapters. And then just that simple statement of like, don't grumble about each other. Like the Lord is coming. Like he's like, we're waiting for this return, and it's like for the harvest and all this stuff. And while we're doing it, to be patient with each other, and to give room to each other, to listen, and like to have that. I want to see that right now in me. I want to see myself to be less grumpy and goofy acting, like, because I've been that lately. I've been grumpy and grumbly. Man, I want to move beyond that.
Or just less quick to see the fault in somebody else. I feel like that. I mean, that for me that's the start of grumbling.
Yep.
Is it's like, first you have to see why somebody else sucks, and I think if we're honest with ourselves, we all suck. You know what I mean? We all come short, and we all fail, and that is all.
Yep. And at the end, that part where he says just a simple yes or no, like you don't, so that you will not sin or be condemned. Like how how often in my history of like fake yeses, fake nos, even within my friends, but just to be like, just to get more to that reality of like, who does the Lord have you to be? Like that double-mindedness of removing that to the point to where it's like, I can say yes to you with something with an honesty and an integrity. I can say no to you with that same, and having that gentleness and that sensitivity towards what you're involved with and in the relationship. But to get to that spot where I don't need to try to create an excuse before I even give you an answer.
Yeah.
You know, where James, I feel like he just is asking us to just get to a reality in the Lord to where you know who you are in him. And then when you interact with each other, you're coming from a grace and a love that's just different than what we normally offer each other, that gives you the ability to just say yes or no without.
And when somebody has integrity, you can trust the yes and no and not even need to ask the follow-up question. You know what I mean? Like you don't need more answers, but it's funny when somebody doesn't have integrity or character, when they say yes or no, they might, it's not that anybody who gives an explanation is in the wrong, but there's certain people who they'll flip-flop so often and have an excuse for every single decision that you almost expect them to you almost need them to have an explanation of like, well, why are you flip-flop so much? You know what I mean? But I think that's where in Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, because it's evil to do anything else. And trying to pull this all full around circle, but this whole like yes or yes, no be no. Here's a perfect example of we started the clearing. We asked Kate to speak in one of the months this year, or July, which we're almost half, or I don't even know when the people are going to be listening to this. But we asked Kate to speak, and she said she didn't want to. And I was like, that's good enough for me. You know what I mean? I didn't ask her why.
Yeah, me.
You know what I mean? Oh, you got the short end of the stick.
Like,
you know?
Kate there?
Yeah.
Like, wait, over here.
Hey, Kate, could you just get up there, take the microphone for your husband? Just say a couple things. But I trust Katie's heart, and I trust her intentions, and I'm not confused by her no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because because she has integrity and she has character, and I know that she's for us. And so there's certain people where it's like their no is like, I'm totally good with your no.
Yeah.
Totally good with your yes, you know?
Dude.
And I think that was I think a good example where, just for all of our relationship, like where we had developed so much trust at that point that her saying no to me, it was like, I don't need you to explain yourself at all. I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just enough for me.
Dude, that's awesome.
You know? Okay.
All right. 13.
Maybe that was too personal, but
No, I don't think so.
sorry,
Because
Katie.
Kate's not here.
Katie's here. Yeah, I actually would have you rather. Katie's awesome, people. She has such a long list of people wanting to speak at places, and so you know, she's a big itinerary.
She's the real deal.
Yeah.
This one.
Yep. Okay.
It's Katie.
Katie Thompson. Okay, 13. Nope. Are there any believers in your fellowship suffering great hardship and distress? Encourage them to pray, and their happy, cheerful ones. I'm sorry, I keep saying and. Encourage them to pray. Are there happy, cheerful people among you? Encourage them to sing out their praises. And are there sick among you? Then ask the elders of the church to come and pray over the sick and anoint them with oil in the name of our Lord. And the prayer of faith will heal them. And the prayer of faith will heal the sick, and the Lord will raise them up. And if they have committed sins, they will be forgiven. Confess and acknowledge how you have offended one another, and then pray for one another to be instantly healed. For tremendous power is released through the passionate, heartfelt prayer of a godly believer. Elijah was a man with human frailties just like all of us, but he prayed and received supernatural answers. He actually shut the heavens over the land so there would be no rain for 3.5 years. Then he prayed again, and the skies opened up over the land so the rain came again and produced the harvest. Finally, as members of God's beloved family, we must go after the one who wanders from the truth and bring them back. For the one who restores the sinning believer back to God from the error of his ways gives back to his soul life from the dead, and covers over countless sins by their demonstration of love. Whew. I love the confessing and acknowledge how you have offended one another, and then pray for one another to be instantly healed.
Yeah.
So, real time. So, what I think is so crazy, this is going to be way transparent. So, there's somebody like in my life at one point where they had majorly hurt my heart, majorly offended me, all those different things. And at the beginning, I was so angry with them and so upset, all the things. And over time, I would just wake up every day and just say, Jesus, I forgive them. And I felt bad for having to feel like I need to forgive this person every single day. Because I'm just like, I'm good. I'm a Christian. I should just be able to forgive and just walk away. But I think that's where Jesus says, forgive 70 times 7.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to forgive over and over and over, because sometimes you just have to. And this thing is where I feel like the way that you move forward in confessing and acknowledging how you have offended one another, there's whether the other person wants reconciliation or not, or connection or not, the Lord can work that out within you. And I had been forgiving this person over and over to the point where I started having dreams where I would go up to this person and I'd start prophesying over them, just like full on, just like, you're made in God's image. You have a calling. You have a purpose. Like, everything that God wants to do in your life is still available. Choose it, pick him, and I'm just like prophesying over this person that a month ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, I'd love to just punch that person square in the face. That'd be great, and sign me up. But that's how the Lord can just start transforming your heart to be like, I don't want to just forgive. I want to acknowledge that maybe there's something I've done, and I want to forgive them, and I want to see their healing. And I think that's what's like beautiful that James acknowledges this of like healing each other.
Yes.
And that there's tremendous power released through passionate, heartfelt prayer. And I think like this is such a just crazy verse because, yes, the goal is that both of you would pray for each other, that you would reconcile, you know what I mean? But if a person doesn't want to reconcile, you can still pray for your enemy.
Yeah.
In the sense of like the Lord saying, pray for your enemies. And they may not be your enemy, but if you are their enemy, then it feels like your enemies, right? And but I think this is where it's like, just pray for them with passionate hearts,
I think too, like for me in those situations, something that God spoke to me about was just within the Lord's Prayer, where He says, "Forgive me my debts, as I forgive those who have debts against me," type thing. And when I read that not too long ago, because we're going through the book of Matthew right now at FBS,
Friends Bible study.
Yeah, I was like, man, what do I owe people? Like, what do I owe my friends? These
that's
people,
the worst question to
right?
ask.
Because I'm like,
I got grossed out by that. What do I owe people?
It was so easy to think like, I forgive you for what you did to me. And then the Lord was just like, what do you owe them? Like, and I'm like, well, that's not what we're talking about, Lord. They owe me more, you know. But like this just realization of like these relationships through life as you go through with, whether it's like with your employer, with your employees, with family, with friends, with all of our things, we're exchanging back and forth, and there's times where that's severed, and there's like this wonder that I had of like, man, what do I owe this? Because right now it just hurts. I'm just seeing what I'm hurt by, you know, and in that has helped me. It's helped me to work through like confessing sins and praying with each other, like the hopes to be able to come together and work it out. And the times where it's, you know, you're in a gap of that, But for me to ask the Lord, forgive me what I owe them. Like, God, forgive me for what I owe them. I don't even know. Like, and then in that, Lord, help me to forgive them too. Cause it brings a humility to the situation that I never had before. It brings a realization of like, well, we're in potentially the same boat. If we were at one point, we might still be in the same boat, just other ends of the boat now.
Yeah.
You know, and you have this idea that I'm doing so much better or whatever, but I feel like the Lord has helped me with the confessing of my sins to each other more than even maybe do that first for me than waiting for you to be like, hey, I'm sorry. You know, but like that's helped my heart to at least to be willing to have like, to get rid of the pride, break that down a little bit.
That's powerful. Super powerful.
It's a good book.
Yeah. I feel like I'm good now. I said that as if, I feel like I'm just saved, set free, delivered, ready to just go to heaven now. Let's go. I said that way, but what I meant was I don't have anything else to add to chapter 5.
I don't either.
This book is so stinking good. I feel like the way you send it is read the whole thing again.
Yeah.
Like by yourself, just like read it and then pick up a different translation or read that.
Yeah. Because I mean, these 5 chapters, you really can read this, take maybe an hour or 2. I don't know how fast you read, but there's something to read a book in order, because you're going to come into one chapter. Like if you just started with us at chapter 5, there's stuff that led to this chapter. So it's like, take the time, guys.
Yeah, chapter 5 started off heavy-handed and just like, whoa.
It's like, James,
at the beginning it was like, love, and now you're getting spankings.
Yeah, so yes, send it, guys. Send it this week. Take a time and just set an hour or so aside and just read these 5 chapters and just kind of make them cohesive together and see what the Lord will show you as a chunk. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. Thanks for subscribing and liking. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a friend.
Yep. We love you all. See you on the next episode.
Bye.